You're wrong.
On the morning of September 11th, a Franciscan priest named Brian Jordan got the news about the terrorist attacks as he returned to his church in Midtown Manhattan.
So I went up to my room, put my sneakers on, put my brass knuckles just in case I need them. I got a pair of brass knuckles in my closet in case there might be some ornery characters. So I wasn't sure that these were, this was an attack or this is some bunch of wise guys. So I put brass knuckles in my back of my pocket. Got the holy water to bless people.
Father Jordan would try to link up with his mentor, the fire department's chaplain, Father Michael Judge, and offer his help.
Before I left, one of the friars says, your good friend and your mentor, Michael Judge, has died in the World Trade Center. And I was speechless. I mean, usually I have a quick response for everything. You know, I'm from New York, you know. We're tough guys. We're responsible. I had and tears well up in my eyes. And I said, you know what would Michael want me to do? I'd sit on my ass and cry about him? Go down there and help the people of God. And that's what I did. So I didn't ask for any help. I walked down there from 31st Street, walked all the way down on the West Street, right to Ground Zero, the World Trade Center. And I met a captain who I knew from the 1st Precinct down there. He recognized me, and he says, Father, we're glad you're here. He says, here's your gloves, and here's your mask. Go to work.
Workers began arriving at the site the evening of the 11th, getting their first glimpse of 220 stories of building, scattered throughout Lower Manhattan.
I came down in the middle of the night, and then I saw the Trade Center, or what was left of it, for the first time. And I just, I just stood there in shock. I couldn't believe what was going on, you know. I was kind of aimlessly walking around, not even knowing really where to go or where to start.
I was dumbfounded, to be honest with you. I was amazed. I remember walking onto West Street and looking around and not realizing where I was at. And I worked on Battery Park for 6 years. And it was just so many humongous piles of debris and steel, and the fires were burning in the smoke, that you physically, if you turned around, you didn't know where you were at.
I mean, to see these 2 giant buildings that I had seen and loved and worked in for the last number of years, to see them spread from Broadway to Battery Park, I still couldn't believe it.
We just kept looking at it and saying, oh man, what a mess this is. And it was tangled and interlocked. I've never seen steel bent like that before, such heavy steel. You know, it was like 8-inch flanges. They were just bent and mushroomed up.
Stuff that you put up too, don't forget.
Stuff that I put up. I was working right in the same area when I was there in the 60s, erecting the building. I was in the same area when it was coming down, when we were taking it apart. I said, what a coincidence this was. I went to 20 other different spots, and I ended up in the same spot where I was putting it up new, you know?
And I remember looking around thinking, you know, how are we ever going to be able to finish this job? And how many guys are we going to lose in the process?
Everybody was there. Everybody was trying to do whatever. I mean, you went in and didn't matter whether you were a carpenter, an iron worker, whatever you were. I mean, you went in there and you tried to do whatever you could to help.
Almost spontaneously, a bucket brigade formed to dig for survivors.
One line this way, one line that way. Must have been at least 150 this way, 150 that way. Took in turns. We're talking about African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, whites, gay, straight, poor, rich, divorced, married, happy or sad, all get on that line. These are construction workers. These were iron workers. These were carpenters. These were operating engineers. These were steam fitters. These are electricians. Volunteering to get there because they cared. And they were in their own time. And we were all together. We were all one single unit with a common mission to find human life. I was there. and I seen the best of America, and of all its diversity, united in one mission to save life.
In the tense hours following the attacks, workers kept a wary eye peeled to the heavens for airliners. Warnings about secondary collapses triggered panicked evacuations.
The ground was just so unstable that, everybody was, was waiting for the next building to come down. There was windows falling out of buildings everywhere. Before you know it, one guy would run because, you'd think that the building was coming down, and before you know it, there's 10 people running. Before you know it, there's 30 people stampeding, and if you fell down, you were going to get run over. That happened quite a few times.
The pile was literally on fire, steaming, buckling, heaving. It was unstable and dangerous terrain.
I've never been around anything that was, that was as dangerous as this. We were walking around on top of mountains of broken concrete and twisted steel and everything, and your footing was always, you were always balancing and keeping yourself from falling down just by walking around.
The potential for injury was tremendous. Just walking from, point A to point B. If it was 10 feet away, you're walking on a pile of twisted debris.
I remember early on, probably in the second week, being in a meeting, and somebody had mentioned that the casualty rate could be expected to be anywhere from 100 on up, where they figured people would actually die cleaning this mess up.
From the start, it was obvious that to clear the pile would require heavy equipment. Cranes, loaders, grapplers. These are the tools of the operating engineer.
We backed the rig up onto the pile there, and the fire department was there, and when they first saw us coming, they were, thank God you guys were here. We've been sitting here with crowbars and pinch bars trying to get this stuff up, so we jumped in there. Where do you want us to pick?
Among the first things to pick were the largest pieces, some of them weighing hundreds of tons, that had been thrown out onto West Street, the main north-south artery through Lower Manhattan.
West Street was not even a street. It was just a mountain of rubble. The North Walkway Bridge from the American Express building over to the North Tower had collapsed, and it was laying on top of fire engines and cars and everything else that was there. So there was no way to get into the actual pile until we started clearing some rubble out of the way to get equipment close to it.
During my second week there, Ground Zero, I quickly realized one of the most important people there are the crane operators, the operating engineers. They have the delicate task of going down to pick up the debris, at the same time making sure there's no loss of life, no loss of evidence for the crime scene.
Move on ahead of pipe from the Washington Street area because we're going to walk the plane around.
Greg Nolan is an operating engineer with Local 15 in New York.
I'm actually the fourth generation of my family, the operating engineers. So since the time I could talk, I was saying operating engineer. I'd follow my father around on a lot of jobs. By the time I was 18, I had a full set of tools and a lot of ambition.
Like an artist who puts a painting